Long-time lurker, first time posting here. I debated sharing this for a while because honestly, it still messes with my head. But I figured this community would understand. This happened a while back when I took one of those ghost tours at the Waverly Sanatorium in Kentucky. You hear the stories, but nothing prepares you for actually being there. Seriously, the second I got out of the car, the vibe shifted. The air felt heavy, thick, and it had this smell, like old disinfectant mixed with dust and just decay. It sticks with you. And the building itself, it's huge and just looms over you. Totally oppressive. My skin was crawling before I even went inside. Felt like a warning I was too dumb to listen to. Inside was even worse. It's dead silent, but it's like a loud silence, you know? Every single step I took echoed like crazy in those huge empty halls. You obviously hear about the story, the history, the tuberculosis, the thousands who died there. But standing there, you don't just know it, you feel it deep in your bones. It's like the misery and suffering soaked right into the peeling paint. Thinking about the death tunnel underneath, where they supposedly slid bodies down. Yet I didn't help the creep factor at all. It made the floor feel thin. Then the weird stuff started. A door slam shut down the hall. Scared the crap out of me. The guide muttered something about the wind, but seriously, the air was dead still inside. Later, I swear I heard footsteps walking around on the floor above us, when our group was supposedly alone on our level. Then came the whispers. Faint, like static. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt like they were almost forming. I kept thinking I was imagining things, trying to rationalize it. Near the main entrance, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. It was just a flash. It looked white, maybe like chains. Going before I could really focus. But the feeling that washed over me right then was pure animal panic. I had to actually lean against the wall, and my heart was pounding so hard. Well, we went up to the roof eventually, where they used to take the kids for fresh air treatments up there. It was freezing. I definitely heard what sounded like kids giggling faintly in the wind. Then I swear, a bit of that creepy ring around the rosy song drifted past. Nope, right back downstairs right after that I heard that. The third floor, it felt heavy, different. They talk about a ghost girl named Mary there. Didn't see her at first, just an old dusty ball in a room corner. Didn't touch it, hell the hell no. But then I glanced into another dark room and saw a small shape. It turned, and guys, it had no eyes, just black, empty sockets staring back. I literally turned around and ran. Didn't even scream, just pure flight mode. Still shaking, made it to the fourth floor. They call this one Timmy's floor. I didn't see anything concrete, but I heard it. It was super faint, but sounded exactly like a little rubber ball bouncing slowly. Thump, 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 and maybe a kid's laugh. Or maybe I was just losing it by then. But the fifth floor, that was the worst. The air up there felt toxic. Just walking down the hall felt wrong. Getting near room 502, I was hit with this overwhelming wave of pure despair and sadness. Almost couldn't catch my breath. I forced myself to peek in, freezing cold air poured out. Pitch black inside. Might have seen a flicker of white. Not sure what it was. What I am sure about was the whisper, crystal clear, right next to my ear. It said, "Get out." It didn't need to tell me that twice. I basically shoved past people, scrambled down those stairs, and burst out the front door into the night air, gasping like I'd been held underwater. Never been so relieved to be outside. But here's the thing that really messes with me. Ever since that night, even back home safe, things feel off. Sometimes I get that prickly feeling like I'm being watched when I'm alone. Sometimes I hear tiny noises, a faint cough, a giggle, but when there's no explanation, it's probably just my mind playing tricks after the experience. But part of me feels like I didn't come back completely alone. Like a piece of that place, that misery latched on. Has anyone else felt like this after visiting Waverly or somewhere similar? Like something followed you or stuck with you? It's a feeling I just can't shake. Stay safe out there, everyone. I debated sharing this for a while because honestly, part of me just wanted to forget it ever happened. But I need to get it out. And maybe someone here has experienced something similar, especially at this location. Names are changed for privacy. So about 6 months ago, it still feels like yesterday though, my friends and I decided to do an overnight investigation at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. Yeah, that one. My friend Liam is massively into the paranormal, armed with EVPs, EMF readers, the whole 9 yards. Chloe, she's the skeptic documentarian, always filming, and Ben mostly tags along for Chloe and the thrill. I guess I was somewhere in the middle, curious, but nervous as hell. We knew the history going in. It was built in the mid-1800s, massive stone place on 666 acres, creepy, right? Designed for 250 patients, ended up holding over 2,400 at its peak. We're talking horrific overcrowding, terrible conditions, questionable treatments like lobotomies and electroshock used more for control than cure. Stories of patients killing each other, staff abuse, a nurse murdered and hidden. Patients eventually being locked in cages. And the record keeping. Apparently awful. People checked in and just vanished from paper. Hundreds, maybe thousands died there. Families were told not to even open letters from patients. The place just radiates misery. So we got access for a private overnight tour investigation. Stepping inside, man, the air instantly changed. Heavy, cold, stale. Smelled like dust and something else I couldn't place. Like old metal in despair. The hallways are huge and just echo like crazy. Even empty. It felt crowded. Like you could feel the ghost of all those people crammed in. We set up our gear, cameras, recorders, EMF meters, in a main room. Liam was practically buzzing, but the rest of us felt heavy, oppressed. The weird stuff started subtly. Cold spots, random intense patches of cold air you'd walk right through. Like just chilly, like freezer cold. Battery drains. Chloe's main camera's battery was fully charged, dropped to less than half within 20 minutes. My flashlight batteries died way faster than they should have. Classic, I know, but unnerving. EMF spikes. Liam's meter would randomly spike near certain doorways, especially on the lower floors, then go quiet. Then we heard the first distinct sound. We were heading down a long, dark ward on the first floor. Faintly at first, then clearer. Scrape, drag, scrape, like heavy metal wheels on concrete. A gurney, no doubt about it. It sounded like it was moving somewhere down the hall, but we couldn't see anything. It faded out, leaving us standing there in total silence, our hearts pounding. On the second floor, near the electroshock therapy rooms, was worse. The air felt thick. That metallic smell was stronger. I felt super nauseous and dizzy. Chloe complained of a sudden splitting headache. Leon put a recorder down and asked me to try asking questions. My voice barely worked. Is anyone here? Silence. And right next to my left ear, I felt this icy cold puff of air like a breath. I heard the faintest whisper. Not words, just a presence. I jumped back so hard, Ben had to grab me. He looked pale. Dude, did you hear that? Now the third floor was creeping a different way. We heard giggling, high-pitched like a child, echoing from an empty room. We shone our lights in, nothing, just dust. The giggling lasted maybe 10 seconds, then just stopped cold. It didn't feel innocent, it felt wrong, like it was trying to lure us in. But the fourth floor, that's where things went completely sideways. Everyone warns you about the fourth floor. The air felt electric up there, heavy and buzzing. We were setting up cameras down this long hall lined with patient rooms, doors mostly hanging open. Absolute silence then. Slam. A single door about halfway down the hall slammed shut in unbelievable force. We all jumped, spun around, lights fixed on it. No draft, nothing. Before we could even process it, it started. Slam, 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 one after another. Maybe 15 or 20 doors down the entire length of the hall just slammed shut in sequence, like dominoes of pure rage. The sound was deafening, echoing like canyon fire. Pure violence. Chloe screamed, Leon was yelling about his EMF reader going nuts. Ben was like, okay, done, we're going. But then we heard it. From behind one of those closed doors, clear as day, this low, guttural, raspy voice. I could barely make it out, but it sounded like it said, go away. And from another door, further down, louder and angrier, but still raspy, away. That was it. We grabbed what we could and ran, scrambling down the stairs, tripping over each other, and behind us, I swear I heard it again. That scrapping gurney sound, faster this time, and heavy footsteps trying to keep up with us. We didn't stop until we burst outside into the night, gasping for air. We threw the gear in the van and got the hell out of Weston. Later checking the gear, Liam's audio recorder from the electroshock room, nothing but static. During the time I heard the whisper. Chloe's camera battery was totally dead by the time we got out. My head throbbed for hours afterwards. I just felt drained and shaky. We left the asylum, but I'm not sure it entirely left us. Sometimes when it's really quiet, I still hear phantom sounds, a faint scrape, a whisper on the edge of hearing. I feel watched sometimes. It's probably just my nerves, PTSD from the sheer terror of that night, right? But part of me wonders if something didn't latch on. Has anyone else had experiences this intense there, or felt like something followed them home from an investigation? Seriously, need to know I'm not crazy. Hey Urbix fam, strap in, this is gonna be a long one. I needed to properly document my trip into Beelitz-Heilstätten because, well, it was more than I bargained for. I know this place is legendary, particularly a pilgrimage site for European Urbix. I'd seen all the photos, read all the history, but I wasn't prepared for the feeling of the place. It's not just abandoned, it feels occupied, just not by the living. So getting there from Berlin is easy enough. Seeing it rise out of the woods near Postaram, though it's imposing. Even from a distance, it looks wounded. I spent a good hour just circling parts of the perimeter, taking it all in, looking for the way. Security patrols are a thing, especially near the bits they still use, which is the Parkinson's clinic and the neurological rehab, so you gotta be smart. Found my spot, the usual Urbix combo of patience and noticing what's neglected. Slipping inside felt like crossing a threshold into somewhere else. The temperature seemed to drop a few degrees instantly, and the sounds of the outside world just died out. The scale is the first thing that hits you. It's colossal, like a whole city dedicated to suffering and then just left to rot. 60 plus buildings in various states of decay, connected by corridors that feel miles long. I started in one of the main ward buildings. Sunlight streamed through shattered windows, lighting up dust motes like tiny ghosts dancing in the air. Peeling paint hung like skin. Graffiti screamed from the walls. Some beautiful murals, some angry tags, some really unsettling symbols I couldn't place. This started almost immediately. It wasn't just quiet. It was a heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to listen. You know that feeling when you know you're alone, but your primitive brain keeps insisting you're being watched? Yeah, that times 10. It was strongest in the bigger open wards and the endless basement corridors, which I mostly noped out of it, let's be honest. Sometimes the air would get incredibly heavy, like before a thunderstorm, making my ears feel weirdly pressurized. Other times, I'd walk into pockets of intense, unnatural cold, even in rooms bathed in sunlight. No drafts, just cold. Look, I don't really believe in ghosts. I believe in old buildings settling, wind whistling through cracks, acoustics playing tricks, and overactive imaginations fueled by creepy surroundings. But Beelitz tested that. Multiple times exploring an upper floor of what I think was the main sanatorium building, I heard distant footsteps on the floor above me. Slow, deliberate tread. I froze, listened. Nothing. Called out. That was possibly dumb. Silence. Went up. Empty corridors. Thick dust. Undisturbed except for my own tracks. It happened twice in that building. Probably settling, right? Or maybe another explorer I didn't see. But the deliberate sound, unsettling. Deep in a wing that felt particularly grim, maybe the old surgery room, clear as day, a heavy door slammed shut somewhere down the corridor behind me. Made me jump about a foot. Echoed like crazy. Could have been the wind, lots of broken windows. But there was barely a breeze that day, and the force of it sounded intentional. I didn't investigate that one too closely. Whispers. This is the one I doubt the most. Probably my brain playing tricks. But in the cavernous kitchens, amidst the silence, I thought I heard whispering. Just for a second, like a radio turned down super low. Voices muttering indistinctly. Gone as soon as I focused on it. Probably just tinnitus or echoes. But man, context is everything. The moving chair. And in one small room, clearly an old patient room, there was a single solitary chair facing a window. I took a picture of it. Continued exploring the floor. Came back maybe 20 minutes later from the other end of the hall. The chair was angled differently. Still facing the window, but turned slightly. Like someone had sat in it and shifted. Could have I bumped it? Maybe. Did I remember exactly right? Maybe not. But it prickled the hairs on the back of my neck. Beyond the usual damp, dusty decay smell, there was this faint, reoccurring whiff of something vaguely antiseptic or metallic, like an old hospital smell, but faded, ghostly. It came and went randomly. You walk these halls thinking about who was here. Thousands dying of tuberculosis, tens of thousands wounded in 2 world wars, Hitler walking these corridors, brooding over his wounded leg. Did he leave some residue of his darkness behind? Standing in the surgery wing, imagining the screams and the saws, yeah, that's where I felt the coldest spots. And I knowing the Soviets were here for decades, a little pocket of the USSR on German soil. It adds another layer of strangeness. Then you remember the beast of Beelitz, Wolfgang Schmidt, snatching victims nearby while this place was still an active Soviet hospital. In Port Anja, the model murder in the gay house in 2008. That much concentrated misery has to leave a mark, right? Even if it's just psychological. And definitely not the first or only one exploring. Saw fresh footprints other than mine, discarded water bottles, the usual urbex signs. Some areas were clearly used by homeless folks, like makeshift beds, but also found some genuinely weird stuff. Circles of stones in one courtyard, odd symbols painted fresh over older graffiti, a bundle of dried flowers tied to a bed spring in the psych ward that looked way too recent. Didn't encounter anyone else directly, thankfully. That almost silent game of hide and seek with other potential explorers or residents is its own kind of tension. Taking photos was almost a relief. It gave me something to focus on other than the prickling sense of being watched. The decay is photogenic as hell. Peeling paint and rainbow layers, rust porn, everywhere nature reclaiming its own. But even looking through the lens, Sunspot just felt resistant, like they didn't want their picture taken. Probably just me projecting, but the feeling was there. I checked my shots later, nothing overly ghostly, just stark, beautiful decay. Still, I wonder what might be lurking in that deep shadow on some of those pics. Spent maybe 4 or 5 hours inside. By the end, I was emotionally drained. The constant low-level anxiety, the sheer scale, the weight of the history, it grinds you down. Slipping back out into the late afternoon sun felt like surfacing after being underwater too long. I actually gasped for fresh air, and relief was immense, but there was also this weird feeling of having tracked something out with me, like the dust on my boots carry more than just dirt. The Beelitz-Heilstätten is the real deal, 10 out of 10. For an urbex location for scale, decay, history, and sheer atmospheric dread, it's beautiful and terrifying. But I'm not kidding about the feeling of the place. It's heavy, watchful, and deeply unsettling in a way photos can't capture. Maybe it's suggestion, maybe it's history, maybe it's just an old creaking building complex full of weird acoustics and drafts. Or maybe it really is haunted. Go see for yourself, but be prepared. It sticks with you. Anyone else get seriously weird vibes or have odd experiences there? Would love to compare notes.